and you know that some horrible things are looming around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, you know that anyone who's casting Grizzly Salvage isn't really trying to play a fair game of Magic.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
So, something's up.
And we'll see if Watt's able to accomplish what he's looking for here. Swiney is going to play that Temple of Triumph. Look at the top card. It's off to the side there because he's still deciding after consulting his hand. You see a hand right now of an Elvish Mystic, 2 copies of Gorkline Rampager, a new 5-mana Xenagos, the God of Revels, and then a mystery card hanging out.
And for all of those who think that the temples are free, this is a good case in point that they are not.
Yep.
That's just one main deck copy of Temple of Triumph, and you see a hand with a boatload of 4-mana spells and no way to cast them that turn.
Yeah, stunting the growth there, unfortunately, is the Temple. As you see, Watt's going to untap. He'll take a draw, plays a Swamp. So let's see what 5-mana spell he's going to cast this turn. Maybe at hopes of that, it's going to be a Blood Baron with Scopa. So that's going to come down. And that's a card, honestly, that a Green Monsters deck isn't really too scared of, as the protection clauses don't really play a role in this particular matchup.
And they often have several copies of Mizium Mortars in their main deck, which is a great answer. And yeah, Blood Baron's, oddly enough, just smaller and kind of outclassed in a lot of places.
Rurik Thar comes rolling off the top here for Swiney, and that is not a misprint. That is a main deck Rurik Thar here. Oftentimes you see that card in the sideboard of the Green-Red Monsters deck, 1 or 2 copies, but he's got one main deck here, maybe expecting a lot of blue-white control this weekend.
It's also just pretty well costed for the size, Yeah. The upside's huge, and even when it's bad, the deck's almost all creatures, so it's hard for it to be too horrible.
Now there is Xenagos, God of Revels, the brand new god, one of the best cards from Born of the Gods. Xenagos is a really interesting card to me because it's this card that there's no arguing the power level and exactly what kind of impact it can have on a game. And the first copy is so very good, but the second copy is blank, basically. Because the first copy is probably not even going to get taken off of the board, but you draw this card in multiples, and the second one doesn't do anything. But I think it's a card that is a perfect one-of in this deck.
Yeah, the impact might be high enough that it eventually ends up becoming a 2-of in this archetype, I think. But certainly it is. Indestructible plus Legendary is a really strong combo in terms of don't play a lot of copies of these in your deck. It's not like your Dahlbreeze that are regularly dying to things. You know?
It's always weird just to think of a card that is just so powerful, and it's just like, I can't ever really reason playing a second copy of this card. Aetherling somewhat fits into that mold as well, of just, there's no reason to play a second one, but boy, is the first one a delight. As you see a Stormbreath Dragon, the draw here for Swiney. That one's pretty good too.
Yeah, although Michael Watt is giving himself a little bit of a buffer with these Blood Barons, though. As powerful as Xenagos plus all these heavy hitters is going to be, Watt's going to be able to keep his head above water, at least for the time being, with all of his life gain.
Now, for Watt's side, as far as removal goes, he does have 2 copies of Shadowborn Demon and then 2 copies of Abrupt Decay, so that's really it. So, it's going to be kind of this Haymaker matchup where nothing really is taken off of the board on Sweeney's side. So I don't want to say goldfishing because I don't think that's appropriate, but, what he plays, he can, it's going to stick.
It's uncontested.
Yeah. He can't assume it's going to stick because he doesn't know what he's playing against because he doesn't have perfect information like we do here in the booth. But whatever he plays, like this Pulachronos World Eater, that's not probably going anywhere.
Yeah, and Sweeney's going to hand back on defense because as long as he can lock up the ground, then he can fly over with Stormbreath Dragon or similar threats.
That would be remiss to fail to mention that Angel Serenity ×4 is looming in this deck. Watt right now is a little ways away from that. That Temple Garden is going to help in a big way because now he's only 1 white mana away from casting that. But there's also Angel Serenity kind of hanging out. A card that, again, terrorized our standard format last year and is nowhere to be seen nowadays, as here's a Whip of Erebos.
Yeah, the combination of Farseek as mana acceleration and mana fixing, and Thragtusk to bridge the gap in between the earlier turns and you getting to your late game made Angel of Serenity very powerful. And that's just, those tools don't exist in the same way. And so Angel of Serenity has gone from one of the premier finishers in Standard to barely played.
See, Anger of the Gods, the draw here for Swiney this turn. Not going to have much of an impact on this particular board. Does not want to get rid of his own creatures for multiple reasons. One, they're providing mana, which he doesn't have very much of, but the devotion for Xenagos is very, very important right now. So Anger of Gods probably going to be put towards the back of his hand eventually here.
Yeah, and these one-ofs in Swiney's deck have been punishing him quite a bit. The one-of Temple, if it was an untap land, he could have had a much better earlier turn. The one Anger of the Gods, not very good against Watt's board, and the one Rurik Thar, lingering uncastable. So. These all have costs. They're not freebies.
They do. Now, one thing that Swiney does have in his hand is 2 copies of Gorkline Rampager, a very, very powerful card in the Green Red Monsters deck. So we'll see how he wants to use that over the course of this game. Of course, it's something he can just play to turn on the old Xenagos. So he's got some real options here with that card. You see the devotion count right now. We've got 2, 4, 5, 6. So he needs one more symbol to turn on Xenagos. But he's opting not to right now. Looks like he's just going to target Pulokranos with Xenagos and come into the red zone here and see what happens.
So I think he's asking for the rules interaction, I would guess, between Xenagos and Gorkline Rampager.
Aha. Yeah, I understand. I can completely see that. So it has to be when the creature is attacking that you can Blood Rush in, because at the beginning of combat, that's when Xenagos' effect happens. So once Blood Rush is only on target attacking creature.
Correct.
So it's not going to work out the way that Mr. Swiney would like it to. But once we do get a ruling here, and you see that Michael is going to step away from the table, we'll get it all figured out here for you guys. But again, we do have a unique deck here in Junk Reanimator on the left-hand side. And you know, I'm curious to see if this something can come back. There's definitely some cards in this deck that I have forgotten have existed because we don't see them very much. A card like Lotless Troll, Centaur Healer, Shadowborn Demon, Armada Worm. Cards that just really aren't seeing the light of day nowadays.
Yeah, and I'm curious, you know, this is a deck that could certainly make use of some additional temples as well.
Yeah.
The
mana
color
fixing
mana
would be nice.
Color mana is a little rough. I mean, he's trying to cast Angel of Serenity and has 4 forests and 4 swamps in his deck.
Yeah.
The mana is pulled.
So now here's Gorkline Rampager after, you see, this is going to be a whole chunk of damage. Goodness. So this is 10. Is this lethal? It's definitely not lethal because he's 24, but
it's
that's
an
a lot.
18. It's an 18 ball. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, that's a non-zero amount. So a bunch of rampaging takes place there. Now, Watt will be able to gain some of that life back on the next turn. As he is at 6, Sweeney's at 16. So Watt's going to quickly untap it. If he does draw a white source, and that's a Temple of Silence, that's exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Where that's the 3rd white source, but it comes into play tapped. So Watt's going to take a look at the top card of his deck and decide what he wants to do with it. He's 1 turn away from casting the Angel, and the Angel changed this game drastically.
Yeah. Although, Swiney set this game up where Xenagos plus Stormbreath Dragon in his hand might be able to work around that, even if that does happen.
See, Blood Baron looks like it's feeling a little frisky. It's going to come into the red zone. We think. We're not sure. All right, it's attacking. Sweeney's going to go down to 12. Watt's going to go up to 10. And as you mentioned, the Stormbreath Dragon in combination with the Xenagos, and also turning on the Xenagos, really could have a huge impact on this game, as Sweeney's going to untap very quickly. He'll take a draw. Got our life totals here, 12 to 10. Again, no lands here for Michael. Plenty of spells, though, that's for sure.
And, you know, Swiney's obviously concerned about removal spells at this stage of the game, but Watt has played in such a way that I think that Swiney does not suspect something like Hero's Downfall or something similar is in play at this point.
Yeah.
Probably would have been cast on that Pulokranos some time ago.
It even begs the question, how much can he even do about it? Like, is it appropriate for him to play around it, even if that were something that the opponent could have? As you see, Xenagos, Stormbreath Dragon, and Pulokranos are going to come into the red zone here. See what kind of blocking is going to take place. Obviously, some blocking will have to occur so that Watt does not die. So you see Blood Baron's going to get in front of Pulokranos, and then you've got Sylvan Caryatid jumping in front of the God of Revels. Stormbreath Dragon's going to get in for its damage, and after the dust settles, some things are moved from the board here. We'll get updated life totals here for you guys. Swinging game, though, right now.
Yeah.
And the tough part here for Watt is that he is forced to block that Sylvan Caryatid, and that's providing the 3rd white mana for the Angel of Serenity. It doesn't look like that's going to be very useful now, so Sweeney just passes the turn back pretty confident. So Watt is going to draw a card for the turn. So you have Forest. Don't forget about that Angel of Serenity over there in the hand, obviously. And the fact that Whip of Erebos can actually bring something back from the graveyard now, too. You see him going right towards the graveyard to see, what can I do? And the answer is not very much, as he's going to pick up his permanent. So Michael Sweeney with Green Red Monsters is going to win game number 1 over Michael Watt. Junk Reanimator down a game to Green Red Monsters.
Yeah, and that's something where it felt like Watt was just missing one extra piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
If he had a creature that actually combined with Whip of Erebos, the damage waste would have been a lot different. He had Blood Barons where that was redundant.
Yep.
And if he could have been able to cobble together his Angel of Serenities in time, that could have also been an enormous swing.
We're going to move to the sideboards here. We'll start with Michael Watts, which I do have in front of me. He's got one. No, this is the fun part. every time you get a brew. And anything can happen. One Ashen Rider, for example, didn't see that coming. You got one Sire of Insanity, a Shadowborn Demon, 2 Underworld Connections, 3 copies of Drown in Sorrow, 2 Revoke Existence, 2 Lifebane Zombies, 2 Sin Collectors, and 1 Pithing Needle. So he's got a lot of options at his disposal. He's playing against Green Red Monsters, a deck that he's probably tested against some since it is so popular. So you gotta love Lifebane Zombie, of course. I think that one's gonna come in almost immediately. You gotta like Shadowborn Demon since it is just a removal spell. That's difficult to get off the board for Green Red. Ashen Rider, pretty expensive. He wouldn't be able to cast it that game. So I'm not sure how realistic it is to even be able to cast it in a match. Now, the fact that you can get it back with Erebos is certainly nice, but I don't know if that's part of his game plan here. Other than that, I mean, Pithing Needle might be okay.
There's
not excited.
There's a lot of Planeswalkers. He may actually have to bring it in because it's possible the threat of Scavenging Ooze is too...
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of Planeswalkers in the red-green deck to begin with,
Sure.
and Scavenging Ooze is a card that Watt has to really concern himself with. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the one Needle come in as well.
Sweeney side, what do we got?
4 Mistclear Hydras, a Pithing Needle, Heroic Thar, 2 Plummets, 2 Arbor Colossuses, whatever the plural that is, a Destructive Revelry, an Anger of the Gods, a Ratchet Bomb, a Mizium Mortars, and a Fleshblood. I do like the Destructive Revelry here. You have to imagine that Whip of Erebos is a huge part of Watt's overall game plan. I actually like the Fleshblood here a lot too because Watt showed you very little removal. So it's very reasonable to be able to get into a combo out position against the Junk Reanimator deck, based on what you saw in the first game. That could change with sideboarding, of course, but I would definitely want to just have fatties, like fast, big creatures, and ways to burn my opponent out if I was on Swiney's side of the table.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you. I think Fleshblood, I think, plays a pretty big role in this matchup. Obviously, Flesh is not really going to come into it, but Blood, the fact that you get a removal spell, dome him out, all the different things that come along with it, you got to like it here.
Are there any white cards in this list? This is really curious. Unless I'm just missing something here, it feels like the Temple of Triumph could be a red-black Scryland instead if you wanted to just play one.
Sure.
And then Fleshblood is more, you might be able to fuse that a little bit more often.
Sure, Temple of Malice could be played over that Temple of Triumph.
Yeah, we're talking, you know, the smallest of edges here, but if you're playing just one Temple for free anyway, then it feels like Temple of Malice might be better suited.
And when you're in an 11-round tournament, the smallest of edges matter.
Yeah,
because it can certainly come up. So we do see both players shuffling up here. We're around 4 of 11 in St. Louis. We got a long way to go today, but it's going to be fun. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan here in the booth at SCG Live. Hashtag SCGSTL for your tweets all weekend long. Let us know what you think about Junk Reanimator. What do you guys want to see deck teched in the sideboard? I know that we've got Nick Miller over there already sitting down with a couple people. So we'll have some deck techs for you guys over the course of the day. We've also got a lot of things to talk about, of course. How to qualify for the Players' Championship, our Invitational in Charlotte. That's down the road here at the back end of March. The front end of March, we'll be doing Grand Prix Richmond, which is going to be an absolute blast. You know, the Pro Tour that's obviously taking place in Valencia this weekend are going to really set the stage for that format.
Yeah, so, you know, there's going to be, you know, the band announcements all occur before sets, so the format that you see now is going to be the format for Richmond. And certainly a different metagame. You know, Pod's been a dominant presence in the format for the last well over a year here. And you know, it still had a pretty good performance at the Pro Tour. We saw a copy in the top 8. I presume many towards, you know, further down in the top 16. But it does feel like the format's definitely pushing a little bit more towards Twin. We see a lot of copies of that. And Storm making its first elimination round appearance in a tournament of this size as well.
Yeah, and no, I haven't got a chance to look over the results, but it looks like no Bitter Blossoms, no Wild Mikados, and no Deathrite Shamans. Yes. That's because that can't happen.
Yes.
Which is still a yes in my book. But the format has definitely been shaken up some, and I think Grand Prix Richmond will give, you know, that little 2-week period, give people some time to brew.
Yes.
Do a little work. Maybe they'll find the Bitter Blossom deck now that the format's a little more stable. Maybe they'll find the right shell for Wild Mikado, or not, because I hate that card. So, you know, either one's okay with me. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun analyzing those results over the next couple of weeks, because you know that's what people are going to be doing, because Richmond is going to be huge.
You don't like the cat?
I don't care for the cat, no. I don't care
Is
for
it because you just like playing with Pyroclasm?
I do enjoy a good Pyroclasm.
Well, that's not, you know, that's, I don't, okay, well, whatever. We can go into this in further detail.
Yeah,
It
I
doesn't feel like Wild Nakado's fault. You know what I mean?
Who else's fault would it be?
Well, maybe the person who just wants to sweep away everyone's cards and then play a Karn on turn 3 or whatever.
I don't feel like I'm part of the problem at all. That's just my opinion. I'm not biased.
I mean, your deck's fairly honest in the scheme of things, too. No, by modern standards.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
modern
It's just a
standards,
ridiculous statement.
Yeah.
That's all.
Turn 3 Karn is, that's Honest Abe right there.
Yeah, you're playing an honest game of Magic right there. You see both players take a look at their opening hand. Watt's going to be on the play here as he is down a game. Looks like he's chosen to keep. You see Swiney kind of agonizing over his decision here on what he wants to do. It looks like he's happy. We are underway here as a Temple of, wait for it, Plenty. That's the first one that I've seen of that for a little while.
You know what's kind of confusing?
Okay.
Making a cycle called the Temples in the same format as Temple Garden.
Yeah.
That's a potential source of confusion.
Yeah. They want me to mess up, but I won't. I refuse. As here's Temple of Abandon. Ha! Looks like that card's going to stay on top there for Swiney. He'll pass the turn back to Watt, who will untap that Temple of Plenty. Take a draw. It's a Sylvan Caryatid. There's a Swamp. And now here is your 0-3 wall.
And this is a much better start for Watt, if no other reason than his mana is much more stable this game so far.
Second Temple of Abandon here from Swiney. Gonna really just smooth out his draws here. And it's funny looking back on history when the Temples were printed and everyone was just kind of a hater. These cards are great.
I said my tweet about these were, I believe the Temples are reasonably powerful tournament level cards, but they are really lame rares.
I like them as rares. Is that bad? Should they be uncommon?
I understand the reason that it needs to be done. It's just, I can't imagine many, the most casual players opening up their booster pack, going to the back and seeing one of these things staring back at them and being like, this was really sweet. That was the source of my critique.
You see another Temple coming to play for Watt, a Temple of Silence. As he does scry and pass the turn back to Swiney, who looks like he's going to play his first spell of the game in the form of Courser of Crufix. So the top card is going to be revealed, and it is a Stormbreath Dragon, which is a doozy against Watt's deck. He does pass the turn back, and knowing that that's going to be coming, that'll probably change some things.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Watt was able to add a Whip of Erebos to his hand.
We'll see if he can find anything to really combo with it this game, as he was really lacking on synergies last time.
Yeah, didn't really get to do very much with it in the last game. Looks like he's going to play an Overgrown Tomb tap to start off his turn. We'll see how he wants to finish it here. As looks like 3 and 4. And there is the enchantment artifact. And so Watt will happily pass the turn back to Swiney, who's going to draw that Stormbreath Dragon. Let's see what he finds on the top of his deck. It's a Pulachronos.
Courser is a pretty high variance design. Some games it's going to look incredible. In some games it's going to look pretty anemic, and thus far it's been a little on the underwhelming side.
But it does gain Swiney a life after he plays that mountain. So he's going to go up to 21. You see him move the Xenagos to his hand. So they want me to mess up Xenagos since there's 2 of them.
Yeah. Also, the artwork on Temple of Triumph and Stomping Ground is really similar. Come on, Wizards. You got to meet us halfway on some of this
We're
stuff.
trying to commentate some games of Magic here, man. Xenagos the Reveler, not Xenagos God of Revels. Could they even make the name different?
Well,
come on.
His profession is reveling.
What is that exactly? What is reveling?
Celebrating, partying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
I think.
You could, but you're not sure.
Well, revelry, that's a party. That's a celebration, right?
Your guess is as good as mine. The people don't
No,
know
my guess is better than yours.
Yeah.
But
you see Xenagos is going to make a Satyr, and the 2 creatures are going to come across in the red zone, going to knock Watt down to 16. As Watt's going to play a forest, he's going to count his mana. He's got 5 of it. That's the worst feeling in the world, I think.
They start counting?
When they're counting. Is this going to be an Armada Worm? Yes, it is. All right.
Boom,
so
shakalaka.
The 5/5, it's going to put another 5/5 into play. And yeah, you're going to want to read that one.
No, you're not playing Return to Ravnica Sealed deck tournament. This is the real deal.
Because if it was Return to Ravnica, you would be dead right now, since that card's very difficult to beat. So you do see Armada Worm and the token coming to play. Now, don't forget, the trick with Armada Worm, I guess trick is a poor term to use, but the token has trample too, which is strange because normally tokens don't have any other keywords on them. But that token has trample, and that's important. Now, the token that's in play does say trample on it. It's actually a nice token there. But that one doesn't get much camera time.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised at the Star City Games level of preparedness to have it.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that. Now, some people on Twitter are wondering how you actually go about getting those. IQs and open trials, actually, that's where they're given away. So, along with Penguin Pins and everything else that's happening on our IQ series. So, you can definitely check that out by heading to StarCityGames.com. But at the end of the day, Swiney, he doesn't want to go to the website. He wants to figure out how to beat this stupid worm token.
Yeah, and if there's any deck that you could imagine where Armada Worm would be good against it, it has to be red-green.
Yes.
Armada Worm's like a better red-green monster, essentially.
So now there are 2 5/5s in play. If you kill the actual Armada Worm, it can come back with Whip of Erebos and get you another 5/5. It's a combo, combo deck.
You can't kill it, and even if you could kill it, that's fine too.
Yeah, feel free. Get it off of the table. Now, the other thing that makes Armada Worm actually pretty nice in this particular matchup, outside of the results that we mentioned, is you see that Mizzium Mortars in Sweeney's hand right now, which is the go-to removal spell for this deck. Well, not so much right now.
No.
Not so much. As overloading that actually won't get the job done. And so now he's in a rock and a hard place because he's looking at that Stormbreath Dragon saying, hey, I would love to cast that. That's probably going to be really good right now, even though that can't tussle with Armada Worm very well, or its token. And then, of course, it looks like Armada Worm's going to go on the offensive next turn, gain a bunch of life back, so the racing situation is out of the question as well. So Sweeney is in a real world of trouble right now.
Yeah, it's not hard for green-white monsters to outclass the green-red, not green-white monsters in the deck, but just large green-white creatures. They're usually designed and developed in such a way to outclass red-green's style of big creatures, and particularly coupled with lifelink, which Watt has now access to in Whip of Erebos. So this is a tough setup for Swiney to fight through.
So you do see the Satyr token's going to come across in the red zone. You know, Watt trying to maybe trap, or excuse me, Sweeney trying to trap Watt with, you know, Rampager or Mizzium Mortars after combat, and Watt says, no, I'm just going to go to 14, actually, because I have Whip of Erebos in play. I've got no interest in blocking when I'm going to gain so much life. As you see, Polakranos is going to come in the second main phase here. And also, you know, that's, you know, a small drawback, actually, to that Courser is that had Watt maybe forgotten about Rampager for whatever reason, well, there's just one on top of the deck. So
yeah, no, it's not, that power is not 100% upside. There's a cost here.
You are letting your opponent know exactly what's going on. So you see Sweeney is going to make another Satyr token and just pass the turn back. I think Watt is very happy to untap in this board position. We'll see what he can add to it as he does take a draw step here. That is oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
The land coming, the seventh mana coming to play on tap is not a good sign for Swiney.
No. And I think he's going to tap all of it. And that's number 7. It's been a while since we have Angel Serenity show up on these cameras, but here it is. The 5/6 flyer has shown up to the party, and it's going to eliminate you and you and you. And those are going to go bye-bye. And then Xenagos, I think, is going to leave very soon as well. You do see Angel Serenity, a standard mainstay last year. Not getting a lot of play nowadays, but it's still pretty good if you can cast it.
Yeah, once you get there, it's really awesome. And Whip of Erebos gaining 10 through the Armada Worms, giving him the time necessary to deploy Angel Serenity.
Can't kill it with Mizzium Mortars. Can't really fight that with Domri Rad. You know, just Armada Worm. We went from Whip to Armada Worm to Angel Serenity. It's your turn. You do whatever you want over there, Green Monsters, man. This is just kind of, you know, we don't see matchups like this a ton anymore, just like, you know, Green Haymakers where whoever has the biggest creature wins. But that's exactly what this is.
Yeah, and the fact that Watt got the start of this game with a turn 2 Caryatid against no acceleration from Swiney was a big difference in this game too. He was in control of the pacing the whole time. His decks, the threats are a little bit on the more expensive side, and so he's actually the control deck in this matchup, usually red-green monsters being the beatdown deck. And so with the mana acceleration and all the time in the world to get set up, he's able to just deploy his huge threats.
Tough guy Satyr token coming in the red zone.
All right, well, I will take it, I guess.
So Watt will take 2. He'll follow for the Stormpetrel Dragon. That's going to be on blocking duty right now. And actually do a pretty decent job of it. It's going to hold that Angel Serenity down for a little while here, but you see, Sweeney's going to take a look at that Armada Worm one more time, and yeah, that's worth doing because that card's really, really tough for you to beat.
What I was trying to say is red-green monsters are often the control deck against other creature decks, but not here.
Yeah, no, not here. He has to be very, very quick and very fast to be able to defeat Watt before Watt gets set up. Looks like Watt's got something else to play pre-combat here. Jeez, what is this?
Settle down.
Yeah, you have enough. What is this? This is, oh goodness, a Shadowport Demon. Kill your Stormbreath Dragon. Get that out of my office. So that's going to go to the graveyard. And now, attacking sounds cool. Let's attack for 5, 10, 15. Sweeney's going to go down to 2. Watt's going to go up to a healthy 35. And yeah, you know, just don't pay the upkeep on the Shadowborn Demon. Return it with the Whip of Erebos. Just
another combo.
Yeah, another part of the combo deck here. That is Junk Reanimator from Michael Watt. The last game, he didn't look all that impressive. This is what he does.
This looks like a commanding board position.
Yes.
The Whip of Erebos was also much better in this game than it was last game.
Yeah, also true. Also true. And, you know, if he's able to play against Green Monsters a lot, I think he's going to have a really nice tournament.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, this is a deck that he wants to play against quite a bit, as Swiney is going to pack up his permanents, maybe look to his sideboard for some more options now that he knows what's going on. But Green Monsters is a deck that a lot of people like to play. And that's completely understandable, as I think, you know, Magic players just, you know, like to play green cards. Brian Kibler, baby.
And it was also a good deck that got better.
Yes.
That's the other part of the people will naturally gravitate. They're going to want to play the new cards. The deck's proactive, does powerful stuff, and you get to add new awesome cards. Not surprising that a lot of people would gravitate towards this so far early in the format.
Yeah.
And Nashville in the top 16 was chock full of it.
Yeah, no, this is, as you mentioned, a good deck. It got better, and it, you know, it's what Magic players like to do, which is, you know, cast creatures and attack with them. And this deck does that probably better than anybody. But if you kind of go gunning for people who are taking that approach, you might have a pretty good tournament. So, you know, you don't know how good Watt's deck is against maybe mono black devotion or mono blue devotion. Might struggle in those matchups. But if you assume that, hey, I think I'm going to be playing against a green red monsters or decks that contain Pelucranos World Eater, this might be a very good place to be.
Yeah, the issue that I think that Watt's going to have potentially in this third game, it would be nice if he had a better way to bridge the gap to get to his bigger stuff. Even a couple of copies of Heroes Downfall would make a big difference. What my worry is if Swiney even just goes acceleration into Pelucranos and started hitting you with a 5/5, Watt's deck isn't really that well set up to fight that sort of draw. So just a little bit more spot removal, I think, would do a lot for him in this matchup.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a ton of it. Again, he's got 2 copies of Abrupt Decay in his main deck, which aren't great against Green Monsters, obviously. He's got those 2 Shadowborn Demons and a 3rd one in his sideboard, but that's not one that's going to bridge the gap, as you mentioned, because that's a high-end spell.
I'm not worried about 5 and 6 and 7 mana.
Yeah.
I'm worried about 2 and 3 and 4 mana.
And then Lifebane Zombie can kind of play that role of what you want. And, you know, it can take a card and then block a card and buy you a little bit of time. So maybe that's the card, even though it's not Hero's Downfall and an elimination spell, it can be, you know, the card that maybe does bridge the gap. And, you know, the information that Watt will get will be invaluable as well.
Yeah. I mean, being on the draw here, Watt is going to have his fingers crossed, I'll tell you right now, through those first 2 turns.
Yeah.
If there's no Elvish Mystic or no Sylvan Caryatid, he's got a great chance, but he might just get running out of the gym if Sweeney's got one of his fast starts.
Yeah.
Watt's just not really that well equipped to handle a fast, big threat.
Yep. We'll see what Swiney does do, because he went back to the drawing board, checked out the sideboard. Looks like he may have moved some cards in and or out of his deck. And we'll see what he comes up with here. As now he's got a better idea of what he's up against. And he can't be too thrilled to see what's across the other side of the table, because if Watt does what his deck is supposed to do, as it did in game number 2, it's going to be a rough road ahead for Michael Swiney.
The Armada Worm is definitely a oh no sort of card. Not a card that's seen a lot of standard play. Didn't really see very much block play, but and certainly not a card you would anticipate seeing even in an 11-round standard tournament. But against a deck like Green Red, it's as good as it gets.
Yeah. 10 mana for 6 power, or 10 power for 6 mana. Excuse me.
And broken up the best way possible, which is 2 5/5s, which means it's out of Mortar's range as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's as well situated against red-green as, you know, certainly more than any other deck in the format.
Yeah, another card I think that's going to be really important for Swiney this game is Gorkline Rampager, too, to be able to break through a card like that.
Oh, he's got to get he knows now after that second game, time is not on his side. Whip of Erebos Armada Worm is not easy for him to beat. Angel Serenity is an enormous threat that basically necessitates Stormbreath Dragon to get out from. He really needs to get off to a good start here in the first 3 turns. Even a hand of, imagine a hand with 3 lands, no mana acceleration, and Domri as the first play. That might not be good enough here. That's a hand you would never consider mulliganing on the play with red-green monsters. It's not clear to me if that's good enough to get the job done here.
We'll see what does happen. I think, as you mentioned, if you're Swiney, it's got to be a hand involving mana acceleration. Mystic, Caryatid, got to get moving. No time to mess around here, especially if on Watt's side he does have a Sylvan Caryatid of his own, which he does have 4 copies of. Now, he doesn't have Elvish Mystic, Swiney does, so he's going to rely a little bit on Sylvan Caryatid to keep up, but if he has it and Swiney doesn't have a mana accelerant on his own, we might see a repeat of game 2.
Yeah. I think after the second turn of the game, we're going to have a really good sense of who's winning, quite honestly.
For sure.
The mana acceleration just means that much. I mean, you remember the old Junk Reanimator decks, what happened when this deck had turn 2 Farseek versus when it didn't. It was 2 different decks.
Yeah. I mean, they played a lot of mana accelerants for a couple of reasons, of course, but, you know, the fact that once that deck started accelerating mana and casting acidic slimes, restoration angels, and everything else that old Junk Reanimator used to do, a lot of your losses came from the fact that they were just doing all of that stuff ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
And that's important. And that's part of what makes green such a great color. They're the only ones really that do have mana acceleration. And they've got some pretty good mana acceleration tools so far. in this particular format. I'll be interested to see if maybe another one comes out. You know, we haven't seen a card like Birds of Paradise for what feels like a while.
I'm trying to think when the last, probably in, I think, M11, I want to say?
Yeah, it feels like a long time since we've seen Birds of Paradise show up. Maybe for the best.
I think there's definitely a critical mass, and this is that he has no mana acceleration, but a good hand. This is exactly the type of hand that I was talking about, where you would never consider mulliganing this were you against most normal opponents, where I think it's actually borderline here. I'm curious to see how this game plays out, because Swiney has kept exactly that kind of hand. Yeah,
we'll see what that scry that he kept on top was. You know, if it is a mana accelerant as he does draw a card, it's just a forest. So he will not be accelerating his mana this game. As you do see, there's a Courser in his hand. He's got a Chandra, a Stormbreath Dragon, and a Domri. So if Watt does have Sylvan Caryatid on his side, he plays very quickly. So this maybe, I think he does. He does.
This is a great start from both sides for Watt.
Yep. He's accelerating his mana. I mean, he's already ahead, basically, of Swiney right now. So Swiney draws his card. You see him move a mountain to the front. Now maybe it's going to be a forest that he opts to play because he wants to deploy Courser as opposed to Domri. Yeah, maybe he's going to go with the 3-mana Planeswalker, and he is. So Domri's going to show up to the party. He's going to start with 3, likely going to be taking up to 4 in a moment here.
And Swiney also has a Chandra Pyromaster in his hand. It seems like he's trying to set himself up here for some sort of like grindier card advantage game. I don't think he can win this sort of fight. Watt's threats are worth 3 or 4 or 5 cards out of Swiney's hand, you know?
There's a Temple of Silence, so Watt slows down a little bit on this particular turn, but you do see he does have a Centaur Healer in his hand right now, so maybe that's what he's going to opt to deploy on his 3rd turn of the game. Or he might go salvaging, or... Okay, so he's got a Lotless Trill. Okay, so this gets a little bit more interesting, too. Again, a card we don't see a ton of, but he does have the ability, to regenerate that now via the Caryatid. So Lotless Trill can play a huge role in this particular matchup and in this game state that we're in.
Combo with Whip of Erebos, very just good card on its own.
Yeah. Very underplayed card too.
Yes.
I think maybe once we get that green-black temple, I'm gonna call it Temple of Rot. Does that sound right?
That's an interesting question.
That's my guess.
Temple of Compost.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
That's not it.
That's almost certainly not it.
I suspect that's not it.
Yeah. But once we do get the green-black temple, I think we might see some more Lotless Trolls hanging out here as Courser is going to reveal a stomping ground that Swiney can put into play if he wants to.
Domri Courser is a nice little small synergy again.
I love it. I absolutely love it. The
fact that alive, try again.
Yeah, the fact that a green-red deck actually gets to draw cards and manipulate their library isn't something that should happen. You know, it's kind of breaking the rules of Magic, given what you think of for green and red.
Well, there's a lot more setup going on here than there is with a divination, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of moving parts. But Scry plus Domri or that sort of thing is a nice synergy.
So you see Stomping Ground comes into play. It's going to gain Swiney life. It's pushed him to 21. The forest revealed off the top. Domri obviously just ticks up, doesn't reveal a creature, and passes the turn back here over to Watt. So we'll see what Watt has to do with his Lotless Troll and other fun things that his deck can produce.
I think I saw an Angel of Serenity in his hand as well. So he's got the finisher.
Yeah, he's got a plan. He's just got to get to it. And there's a forest. And he's only 1 white mana away. And it's going to be a Centaur Healer that shows up. So Watt's going to go up to 23. We're going to add a 3/3 to the board. And I want to see if he wants to attack with this Lotless Troll.
Well, I think before combat, he could have just attacked at Domri, and there's almost no way that Michael blocks.
Yeah. I think he's got to be probably too scared to block. See, top card's going to be another copy of Domri. That's not going to help. And realistically, you know, you got to start getting after that Domri, I would think.
Yeah, the ultimate's a threat, certainly.
And, you know, we're a couple turns away from that really coming into play in this game, but you do want to get that off the table if you can. As you see, Swiney's going to pull his Chandra Pyromaster in the front of his hand, so I think he's considering playing that for this turn.
And, yeah, I'm just curious to see, you know, Swiney's playing a much slower game. He does have some powerful stuff going on, but I do have my doubts about his ability to maintain power-wise with what Watt's going to be doing once the mana gets set up.
He does play a Mountain, pushes himself up to 22, does Swiney. Looks like he wants to cast a Stormbreath Dragon this go around, considering Chandra Pyromaster as well. Certainly appealing to get that 4-mana Planeswalker into play.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
I think that Swiney might have been very fast to deploy Stormbreath Dragon this turn if it weren't for Centaur Healer. Now the race has kind of shifted.
Yeah. So now there is the Pyromaster. So it's going to start with 4 counters, and we're going to see where this is going to go. You know, there's definitely some merit to just exiling this.
Trying again.
Yeah, and trying again with Domri. So that's going to be Mutavault. Now, you know, on the flip side of this, if that was your plan all along, he played a land already.
Yeah.
So it looked like he was a little unsure of himself, because if he plays Chandra, exiles Domri, hits the Mutavault, Corsair can put the Mutavault into play, and you can try to actually hit with your Domri again.
Yeah.
So maybe a sequencing error there. You see a Grizzly salvage here from Watt, where maybe he wanted to cast Storm Breath and chose not to. Salvage is going to reveal another salvage, a Temple Garden, a Bloodbaron with Scopa, a Lifebane Zombie, and a Swamp. So what to take on this one?
You know, the Lifebane Zombie's gotten a lot worse in the face of this Chandra, but if Watt can contain it, or if he's willing to just pay for the potential to discard something, then Lifebane can still be good here.
He does choose to take Lifebane Zombie. Of note, Temple Garden was chosen not to take, so maybe that implies that he does have the third white source in his hand for Angel of Serenity. We're going to see. You see an Overgrown Tomb and a Swamp over there. You've got some mana being tapped here. Looks like he's going to try to go for Lifebane Zombie, hoping that his opponent has a green card in his hand. But, you know, he should have a good idea of what Swiney does have in his hand, because Corsair was in play. The answer is 3 lands, and he didn't know about the Stormbreath Dragon, but Lifebane's going to miss. And also, even if Lifebane were to hit there, it's going to die from the Chandra.
Yeah. No, I understand the urge to at least take a gander. There's some dangerous threats that the deck could potentially have there as well, but I think with Angel of Serenity in your hand, you're probably not that concerned with most green creatures, assuming that you can cast it, because it's all going to get swept up in a turn or two anyway. The bigger threats right now are the Planeswalkers. I felt that Bloodbaron matched up a little bit in fighting that sort of fight.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. I think I caught a glimpse of a Godless Shrine over there in Watt's hand, so it looks like he does have that other source of white mana. As you see, it looks like he's going to move into the red zone here. We'll see what he's going to be attacking. We'll get confirmation from our table judge about exactly where that's going. So what does that Centaur Healer and that Lot Latrell want to beat up? You'll see the Corsair is going to get in front of the Centaur Healer. And they're both going towards Domri. So just want to contain that a little bit.
I like that attack. You know, it's not, again, with Angel of Serenity, he can certainly overpower Domri, but the short-term threat of it going ultimate is a big deal here. So just keep it off of going ultimate.
There's the Godless Shrine, passing the turn back, kind of innocuous. It's just a Godless Shrine tap, go ahead.
No big deal.
But that one actually ends up mattering a lot. As Mutavault's going to go to Sweeney's hand. You're going to see a Mountain here, so Swiney flooding very badly right now. 4 lands in hand, 1 on top of his deck. He's got to put that land into play to find something that actually does something here. So Sweeney's going to go up to 23. That's an Elvish Mystic, which he can draw via Domri.
And I have not seen this setup before. This is some really sweet synergies that are going on here. Like I said, I don't know if he's going to win this game, but the Chandra, Domri, looking at the top card of my deck, scrying stuff that's going on here there's a lot of sweet little synergies going on.
Yeah, I mean, just think about how hard it is for maybe a blue-white control deck to be able to beat what's going on here which is a red-green deck, just drawing a bunch of extra cards and seeing a bunch of extra cards in turn. You think of a red-green deck, they don't have the ability to do that. I can exhaust their resources and then win at my leisure, but that's not how the red-green deck is in this particular format. You see Lifebane Zombie is going to deal 1 to the, or excuse me, Chandra's going to deal 1 to the Lifebane Zombie and 1 to Watt. They're going to knock him down to 22. I think that's actually what makes the red-green monsters deck very appealing in this format, is the fact that it can actually see a lot of cards over the course of the game.
Yeah, you can shift roll. You can certainly shift rolls against control decks.
So Scavenging Ooze is going to be the card that's revealed from Corsair now, as Domri is going to allow the Elvish Mystic to come in. So both Planeswalkers have been used for the turn. We'll see, again, 4 lands, one of which is Mutavault, an Elvish Mystic and a Stormbreath Dragon here, what Sweeney is working with. He'll have access to at least Scavenging Ooze next turn, as there is the 4/4 flyer. Follow that up with that Elvish Mystic that everybody knows about. And now the Dragon's going to come across into the red zone. It's going to knock Watt down to 18, but that's a risky attack because now a lot of stuff gets to get in.
Yeah, no, this may be a disaster. I understand the incentive to get in there, but that Storm Breath with protection white on defense would have been really good. Now this is looking like an Angel of Serenity that could potentially sweep up a lot of the board, and 5 power in play, which can take out a Planeswalker of Watt's choice.
The one Pithing Needle on Watt's sideboard was his draw for the turn. You see him counting his mana. That's the 6th one. Sylvan Caryatid will make the 7th for Angel of Serenity if that's what he wants to deploy. And I'm hard-pressed to not want to do that.
It seems like a good spot here.
You see all the mana being tapped. There's that sinking feeling. Angel of Serenity placed onto the stack. Targets will be this, and Lifebane Zombie. Not so bad.
Not shabby.
So after the Angel does resolve, we'll see where that Centaur Courser and that Lotless Troll want to go. Which Planeswalker do you care about more here?
Probably Chandra, since Watt has just tapped out, so his Lotless Troll's exposed.
Okay.
That would be my instinct.
And you can see Watt's hand, he's got a land, which is an Overgrown Tomb, and that Pithy Needle in his hand. So, you know, ideally, you do want to be able to kill that Lotless Troll, but also you could play a little game of gamesmanship against your opponent, thinking, man, I have a creature in my hand, so you don't want to shoot that.
Yeah, but there's no better target is the thing. Maybe he would just zero Chandra.
Yeah.
Sure, that makes some sense.
But either way, Chandra Prime Master is going to bite the dust. That's where the Centaur Healer and the Lotless Troll do go. Swiney's still at what is typically a comfortable 23, but he's in some trouble here. As his Courser's gone, so it's just, you know, one of his card drawing engines is offline. He does have Domri, it's just Gavin who's going to go to the grip, but he's really struggling.
Yeah, it's hard for him to win. You know, at this point, it's hard for Swiney to race, and Watt has so many more powerful draws in his deck. It's sort of the squeeze. Probably can't win short, and not clear on a strategic level if you can win going long.
Well, let's take a look. Again, Scavenging Ooze and a bunch of lands are all that Michael Sweeney's got to work with right now. Hasn't used Domri yet.
He could just say, whatever, and monster a Stormbreath Dragon and hope that Watt can't win in time or kill the Stormbreath Dragon.
That might be the best plan.
It's not an unreasonable path to take here.
I mean, if he does that, it becomes a 7/7, 2 damage from the trigger. It's going to knock Watt down to 16, and the attack for 7 puts him down to 9. And then maybe you have Domri, you know, like fight the Centaur Healer, and then the race is on, and, you know, you don't have a very long time to go. Now, that looks like the plan he's going to take. He goes, all right, Monstrosity on the Dragon. You take 2 from the cards in your hand. I've got a 7/7 flyer, and let's go. Let's race this bad boy.
Yeah, and, you know, there's some draws here that are really bad for Swiney if Watt finds him.
And that is not, now that yeah, actually, that can't happen. I'm sorry, because the Dragon does have protection from white. So now the Angel of Serenity is gone. So now the Angel is looking, the Stormbreath Dragon, is looking great. And now here's an attack for 7.
It's a little rough to give him back the Lifebane Zombie now, having given back him so many green creatures, but...
Watt's going to untap. He'll take a draw step here. Not quite sure what that card was. May have been a Revoke Resistance, maybe. Should be a strange one to sideboard in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because Xenagos was so good in that first game.
Yeah, the God of Revels, sure. Let's see what Watts wants to do in this turn. Again, he does have that Lifebane Zombie in his hand that was returned from Angel Serenity dying. And that's what he's going to go with. So, he's going to see a hand here of Courser of Crucifix, Elvish Mystic, Scavenging Ooze, and then lands. And now if you're Watt, all of a sudden, you're in a really bad spot, because now it's almost like you have to draw Shadowborn Demon or bust.
But possibly Whip of Erebos as well.
Yeah, that's when that could turn.
There's a couple good draws.
Yeah. But that's that might be just about it as far as things that he can draw to get himself out of the situation. So it's this game has changed in a hurry. Scavenging Ooze is going to bite the dust. So let's see what else he can do this turn. Looks like he might move into the red zone here, potentially. And that's where he's going to go. So an attack here for at least 5. We'll see where it's going to go. Looks like he might be going towards Domri here with the Centaur Healer. And that's what he's going to do. So Healer's going to take that down. Lotless Troll's going to go upstairs. It's going to knock Swiney down to 21. Still got that Pithy Needle in his hand. And it's funny, Needle would have been a lot better now. You know, we thought about the uses for Pithy Needle in this particular matchup. Huh? I had forgotten about Stormbreath Dragon's Monstrosity being actually a pretty good choice. Pretty good choice there.
So what to name at this point? Is Mutavault?
And he's going to go with Mutavault, which is not the ideal name, but given the situation, I think it's a pretty good one.
Number 4.
So time has just been called in the round, but these guys do have about 4 minutes left here in this match between Junk Reanimator and Green Red Monsters, Watt and Swiney. And it looks like Swiney is in the driver's seat right now, as he's going to play a Courser and reveal a Rook Thar. That is a large, angry monster.
Not the best situated card for this matchup in terms of text box, but big creatures are just generally pretty good against Watt's deck.
Yeah. it's a good spot to be in. Dragon's going to come across here. It's going to put Watt down to 2. No Gore-Clan Rampager to finish things off. Thankfully, if you were a Watt fan, there's an Elvish Mystic. And now Swiney has not played. He did not play a land that turn, and he could have played a Temple or anything else, but he chose not to. And that is, I did not make that card out. I do not know if that was Shadowborn. It looks like it was a lot with Troll. Yep. So he is going to revoke existence the Courser. Maybe another reason that he did bring that card in as a removal spell for that. But unfortunately for Michael Watt, you can see his hand there at home. Lotleth Troll and Overgrown Tomb are what's left over. And even though he had a fantastic start in this game, he wasn't able to cobble together anything to stop a Stormbreath Dragon.
Yeah, I mean, he has nothing in it. He has no Heroes Downfalls in his 75. You know, Lightbane Zombie obviously doesn't answer it. His big creatures in our Mono Worm and Angel Serenity provide no defense against it. Yeah. And so, by all accounts, this was a deck that, a game rather that Watt was structurally set up to win, but Stormbreath is just kind of stealing it from him.
Yeah, and it's a very good Magic card. It's been known to do that. And as Swiney does draw Ruric Thar, he can choose to play that pre-combat if he wants to. You can choose to play it post-combat. He's going to play a Temple here. He's going to take a look at the top card of his deck. He just wants to make sure he does everything right before attacking with what looks to be a lethal Stormbreath Dragon. There is your Ruric Thar, the Unbowed. And there comes the Dragon, an extension of the hand. Michael Swiney going to move on to 4-0 with Green Red Monsters, taking down Michael Watt in his innovative Junk Reanimator deck. I knew we were going to see a lot of Green Red Monsters this weekend.